The word iota has two distinct meanings. As a noun, 1. A tiny or scarcely detectable amount. 2. The ninth letter of the Greek alphabet.
Welcome to IoTA for Thursday, September 1st, 2016. I'm Tony Lynn. IoTA is a daily news podcast focused on the Internet of Things and a little bit of Atlanta here and there. Welcome to a little bit of a different show today. I'm going to try a little something. It's during the process of learning all about this podcast and trying to figure out exactly how to do it appropriately and to go forward. It's taken about 2 to 3 hours a day to actually generate the content for the podcast. And while this has been a lot of fun, I don't always have time to do that. And today's one of those days where I'm literally in a time crunch. So in order to try to I guess get through this a little faster, I'm going to try something a little more different. So the title of the show is On a Wing and a Prayer. This is going to be a lot of ad-libbing in this, and instead of reading from sort of a predefined script, I'm actually going to dive right in and I guess react to what I'm reading to you. So let's get started. All right, so in Tech Hive from IDG, Michael Brown writes that Z-Wave, or part of it at least, has become an open smart home standard. Sigma Designs, the integrated circuit maker that owns Z-Wave smart home technology, announced today that it has released the interoperability layer of its Z-Wave technology to the public domain. The company had previously donated its Z-Wave radio standard to the International Telecommunication Union, ITU, which adopted it as public G9959 radio standard. Sorry about that. Are you not familiar with Z-Wave? I wasn't either, to be honest. The technology was developed by Danish company Zensis, and it first came to market way back in 2005. I guess Sigma Designs actually acquired Zensis in 2008. Today, there are more than 1,500 certified Z-Wave products on the market, according to Sigma Designs. So let me see. Z-Wave is the most widely deployed smart home technology out there, according to, I am going to butcher this name, Wiggergangs. There's nothing that comes even close to it in the smart home space. Sigma has achieved market share in the smart home segment and the IoT industry of things space around 60 to 70%. 375 companies are building products for the smart home. Very interesting. So this is important from the standpoint of, as we continue to talk about IoT and how standards are something that we really kind of need. The fact that they've kind of had this standard for at least the smart home technology, and now they're opening it up, is an interesting play. However, they're having to do it mainly because of what Apple's doing with HomeKit and what Google's starting to do with some of its endeavors, and certainly what Amazon is doing. That if they're looking to continue to compete, they don't really have a choice. So I think this may be a little bit too late. I think the only thing they really got going for them is the fact that they've got a lot already out there, and having that tie in with others would be good. Actually, what may be in their best interest is for someone to write connectors to some of the other competing standards and use it instead. I don't know. Does anyone out there actually have any Z-Wave items? All right, moving along. In ComputerWeekly.com, Alex Croxton reports that IoT will help ease transition to renewables, says the National Grid Chief. Now, I wonder what a National Grid Chief is. All right, so the National Grid's Chief Executive, Nicola Shaw, wants to use the Internet of Things to balance energy demand as the UK transitions to renewable energy sources. So obviously, this is not a US story. And I guess there is a UK position called the National Grid. Very interesting. Power-hungry domestic appliances such as dishwashers, fridges, and washing machines will soon begin to use the Internet of Things to operate more efficiently and smoothly and smooth out spikes in demand, helping keep the lights on in the UK as the UK transitions away from fossil fuels toward cleaner renewable energy. This was the prediction made by the National Grid's executive officer, Nicola Shaw, who said that by using smarter products, the need to build conventional power stations fired by gas could be reduced. Gas-fired stations generate about 30% of the UK's total power needs. Interesting. That's according to 2015 figures. The old Department of Energy and Climate Change, well, that name would never go over here, I don't think, has committed to eliminating coal gas-fired power stations, responsible for about 20% of UK power by 2025. That's still fairly aggressive, and 2025 will be here before you know it. This means there will soon be a growing need to make up for the shortfall in electricity generation while more renewable options come on stream. The previous government saw gas and nuclear as this means to do this, but still hopes to phase out gas-fired stations in 20 years or so, adding more pressure. Speaking to the BBC, Shaw said that adjusting peak demand using what she termed the Internet of Energy, that's an interesting term, could effectively smooth over between 30 to 50% of daily fluctuations in demand on the grid, going some way to plugging the gaps in generation capacity. In her interview, she highlighted a moment of real change for the energy sector. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about IoT and energy within the States, and certainly along the utility systems. And there are several companies that are doing just that to try to help monitor demand. And in this case, what they're really talking about is not only just using IoT to become smarter about the usage, but to also go in and not retrofit, but certainly replace some of the existing networks with smarter ways to generate electricity, and then having IoT then, I guess, manage that. Interesting. I do think the Internet of Energy, I got to think about that a little bit. The term or the idea around this, I think, is very important. You know, as we have the same problem here in the States, is that the good big chunk of our electricity is not generated by renewables. It's coal and other things, petroleum in some cases. But I'm very interested in this. My father spent the good portion of his life actually working in for a company called Southern Company, more specifically Alabama Power, and in it he actually worked for the nuclear plant in Dothan. And so just seeing that transition, how long it took to become viable, I'll be interested to see if this can actually happen by 2025. All right, in PC World, who wrote this? Agam Shah writes that DARPA sees IoT and AI as weapons to dominate wars. Of course they do. All right, hold on a second. U.S. Defense Research Agency is funding research for sensors and intelligent systems that could help extract information even from unconnected devices. DARPA wants to exploit the power of the Internet of Things to help the U.S. dominate battlefields. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, will fund the development of sensors and artificial intelligence systems that could help break into, extract, and analyze information from enemy devices and communication systems. All right, so we'll segue real quick. We've been talking a lot about how IoT is pretty much insecure right now, and no one is actually well, not no one. There's a lot of people out there actually doing a lot of things to make our things more secure, and it looks like DARPA's in the process of trying to exploit that before it becomes too secure. Anyway, the components and systems will arm the U.S. with more data to analyze enemy moves and strategy. Information is king in wars, and DARPA wants to develop technology that can break into enemy systems. And I'll finish with this. They're talking about going into any situation and extracting information at any time with artificial intelligence systems that can attack and hack any network, says Jim McGregor, principal analyst at Tirias Research. Well, we know this is going to happen, right? That eventually the things that we're using, I mean, let's face it, there's drones already out there doing this. So there's already an IoT heavily embedded into the business of war. The fact that they're making this public, I think, is, I don't know, it's just, I guess, a minor warning that, hey, we're going to be coming for your things. Be prepared. And finally, in Read Write, Read Write actually does a lot of IoT type stories. I'm very happy, and particularly David Curry, the contributing writer here. We read something about him at least once a week. So in his story, can IoT cut corporate losses for high value goods? Now, well, let me just read it. I'll tell you what it is. Cold supply chains that ferry vaccines and commodities could see a reduction in loss rate if they switched from incumbent systems to an Internet of Things solution. That's according to a new report from Lux Research, which investigates return on investment for cold supply chains if they switch. Vaccines and rare seafoods would see the highest ROI when switching from current systems to IoT, while cheap produce and chemicals will take longer to pay for the IoT upgrades. For items like bananas or farm salmon, Lux Research says the decision will depend on the loss rate. If the customer receives a shipment and 20% is inedible, it's probably a good time to upgrade containers. Ericsson and Maersk Line are already working on an IoT network for the cargo loads. Sensors are embedded inside containers, which provide customers and suppliers with real-time temperature data. Lux Research said the containers need to provide data on light, shock, and humidity as well, all of which can affect cold supply. Containers could also be fitted with self-cooling, which automatically turns on if the containers become too hot. All right, so we've talked about this a lot. The whole how do we monitor and protect food, and now vaccines or anything that requires anything that's perishable. IoT fits in there perfectly. There's a lot of companies doing a lot to it. I think we reported on, I think it was Intel's chip just recently, the little tiny thing that could do a lot of what they're saying here. Just rely on someone else's Wi-Fi in order to get it done. Anyway, I do think that these are, this is where the big push is going to come from initially. I think with IoT is, how do you protect those type of goods? All right, so we survived the ad lib show. I'm happy that it went as smoothly as it did. I'm very very happy it went as smoothly as it did. Hopefully we'll get back to our normal type show tomorrow, but as always, send any feedback or story ideas to tonemach@gmail.com. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Tonemach, imagine that. And if you want to find out what I'm doing, it's at you guessed it, tonemach.com. If you're really enjoying it, we'll get more professional over time. I'm certainly enjoying my time here. And if you would like to support us, go to patreon.com/Tonemach and feel free to donate and support us. And all right, guys, until tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, be our last show until Tuesday, since, like I said before, Monday's a holiday. Until then, have a great day.